Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Have you heard about some of the things that the new House majority GOP has been spending time on? And when I say you, I of course don't mean Lewis. I know he hasn't heard, but I mean you, our audience. You may remember that they decided to read the Constitution. Remember that, Lewis, a couple weeks ago,
right?
On the floor of the House, and that's obviously really important to do if you are running the House, because we need to be aware of what is in there. We really need to be reminded on the floor of Congress that one of their powers, for example, is to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations. Making sure that that is read and entered into the record on the House floor, that's a really good use of time. And I guess the idea of that was to prove that they will, continue using their campaign strategy of selectively quoting the Constitution out of context for political gain? Is that the point of reading the Constitution on the House floor? I don't know what it was. Another waste of time, probably an even bigger one, is that the House has voted 245 to 189 to repeal the healthcare bill, which, as you know, took quite a bit to put together, did many good things, and actually reduces the deficit. So obviously we have to ask the question, in light of Republicans making absolutely apoplectic tirades during the campaign about how they're going to cut spending and what they're going to cut spending on, they couldn't really go into that, and how important it is to reduce the debt. You're wasting time voting to repeal something, which, by the way, is not going to be passed by the Senate, and the president said he would veto, so it's a waste of time. You want to cut spending, but you actually repeal a bill that reduces the deficit by $130 billion. How does this make sense, Lewis? Is it just a figurative thing? They want to say, well, we did what we could. In the House, we voted to repeal it.
Yeah, they can use that as ammunition against Obama, right?
I don't know. I don't know if they can use it as ammunition. At least when they campaign in a year and a half, they can say they voted to repeal the healthcare bill. I don't know.
Right.
It's not going anywhere, as I said. Instead of working to cut spending, which they don't actually want to do, they're trying to repeal deficit-reducing measures that help people. By the way, are we getting tired of the sickening hypocrisy of the anti-healthcare people? Cheney allowed an energy company and its officials to dictate energy policy. A conservative said deficits don't matter. A covert CIA operative was outed. The Patriot Act was passed. We illegally invaded a country that posed no threat to us. We spent over 2,000, or rather, how much is that actually, Lewis? I think that number may even be wrong. We spent billions and billions on wars that we can't win, that we can't even define winning on. We were torturing people. Illegal wiretapping. We didn't catch bin Laden. We gave hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the rich. And now people are mad that we have a deficit-reducing healthcare reform bill that will insure more people. Now Republicans are angry. I don't get it. Maybe I'm just naive. I just don't get it, Lewis.
Well, they were angry the whole time. They were angry before the bill got passed.
That's true.
They didn't want the bill passed.
And we actually have to say, what is the GOP going to cut in terms of spending, right? House Speaker John Boehner has pledged to reduce spending to 2008 levels. There's this pledge to America. And we actually got a list today of $2.5 trillion in spending cuts. The House GOP put this out. I'm going to tell you about some of these things. You tell me, ladies and gentlemen, if any of these are even remotely surprising to you. Here's some of the most concerning. Amtrak subsidies completely gone. The U.S. is already, decades behind on train travel? Is that fair to say? Decades, or is it even more than that?
At least.
We're not a century behind, I guess. We are decades behind. So let's take more money away from Amtrak. That's a great idea. Fantastic. I'm sure we'll catch up even more in high-speed rail on that front. Let's take money away from the National Endowment for the Arts. Certainly that is not a good place to put taxpayer funding. We'll keep all those bases open all over the world in places where there haven't been conflicts in decades as well. But let's reduce spending on the National Endowment for the Arts, which, by the way, is a drop in the bucket.
I'm not seeing any cuts on overseas spending. I'm looking at the list. I'm trying to
course.
find it. Well, there is one. Here's one. Imagine this. Eliminate taxpayer subsidies to the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
Of course.
Okay.
Two things. That's a 2-for-1.
I guess you could consider that overseas spending.
It's a 2-for-1, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue to talk about how the U.S. doesn't care about the United Nations. That's really a great idea. And anything that relates to climate change, let's also show that we're not on board with the rest of the world there. Fantastic. Also, part of this deficit reduction or budget cutting, whatever it is we want to call it, $900 million to run President Obama's healthcare reform program. So this is not a surprise. What is happening here, ladies and gentlemen, is can't repeal it? Fine. Let's just not fund it. And we heard from many House Republicans, Lewis, that this was going to be the strategy. If we can't repeal the law, we will make it so they can't get the money to put those programs in place. I don't believe it will work. I just flat out don't think it's going to work.
We'll see.
What else do you see in here that is of no surprise by any means in terms of the priorities that we are seeing? I mean, this is a fundamental difference in priorities and how we believe a country should be run. And I'm not talking about communism or socialism. I'm talking about a capitalist system that is both more fair, but also benefits the greater good.
There's not only Amtrak, there's intercity high-speed rail grants. Of
course.
That's $2.5 billion.
Let's throw that in there too. Let's just toss it all in. And really, I mean, we're going to get accusations that the direction I'm going is saying we should be a communist country. It's not. It's not by any means. I don't want that. That is not my politics. But what I am saying is that when we look at the wealth that has been created, the GDP dollars that have been created over the last 20 years, the overwhelming majority of that have gone not to the workers who have done the majority of the labor hours, but it has gone to the richest of the rich. And we know that. And it's a tired old argument in the sense that we are bored of it because it is just so obviously the case and it is so obviously the direction we're continuing to go. Do you see any indication, Lewis, where, again, we're not talking about the government assigns you a job and you can't have your own business and you can't make a lot of money. But do you see anything that is going to take place in the near future, and by that I mean 15, 20 years, that would in any way equalize the incredible income inequality that we are seeing in this country?
15, 20 years is a long time.
You believe it's even remotely possible?
Perhaps.
I don't know. I really am skeptical.
That's a long
about
time.
that.